Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Thursday, March 24th, 2022. And today I will be reviewing a couple of Stephen King and Peter Straub novels. Not sure how to say his last name. I probably could have looked that up. Anyway, I'll be reviewing a couple novels today in the weekly book review episode here. As always, you can find all the episodes and links to social media, ways to donate, and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, which is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO. There we go. Okay, that's better. I have my cord for the headset wrapped around the mic. And always looking to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences, whether they're your own or others you trust. Happy to hear from you all, whether you want to send those stories in as written messages or you want to join me on the show. That's fine as well. Happy to have you on and talk about those with you. So today, just to take a little break from the Lovecraft, going back to one of my other favorite authors. When I started reading when I was in middle school, so probably too young. But anyway, there's these two books by Stephen King and Peter Straub, and they are Talisman and Black House. And so I figured I would review those today, so there will be spoilers. In fact, it'll probably be mostly spoilers because I'm reviewing two books that are in basically the same universe. So there's the first book and then there's a sequel. I'm going to do this one at a time. There's another two books of King's that I want to review another week, which would be The Shining and then Dr. Sleep. So he has a couple of these little two-book stories here. Then, of course, he has this huge 7-book series, The Dark Tower cycle, which is a whole other thing I'd like to review at some point. And I have kind of mixed feelings on that one, so it might be interesting to some of you all. So anyway, I guess we can get to the first book, which is The Talisman. Now, this came out in 1984. And so here we go with the plot. So it starts off with a 12-year-old boy, Jack Sawyer. He and his mother end up staying at this hotel in New Hampshire, but his mother is dying from cancer. But at some point, Jack learns of this crystal called the Talisman from this groundskeeper known as Speedy Parker, who takes care of this carnival or amusement park near the hotel. Basically, he meets this man and they start talking, and so it kind of leads to this discovery of another world, basically another universe. It's parallel to the one that Jack is from. The interesting thing about these two universes is that most of the people in these two universes exist in both universes. There's a different version of each one of them, and um, so they basically, um, let's see here. They basically are just parallel different versions of themselves, and apparently in Jack's world, basically these people that are similar versions to each other are born and in many cases die around the same time, and also have other major life events that are usually similar in both dimensions. Now, um, those that are become aware of this and kind of discover this ability to almost use their mind, I would say, to travel. Um, People can travel between the two universes, and but the thing is, when they do that, they they become aware of that universe's language, and so it's really interesting how that goes. Um, Now, and once in a while, in rare situations, such as with Jack, a person may die in one world, but not the other. So this somehow gives Jack and people like him the ability to go back and forth, body and mind, between these two worlds. And like I said, Jack is taught about all this by this mysterious figure known as Speedy Parker and his universe, which is similar to ours, and this gunslinger, which is a term from other books of King's, mainly the Dark Tower series. A lot of his books are connected to each other in different ways. It's kind of like this huge multiverse in a lot of ways. But this gunslinger named Parkus, who is in the territories. And Jack's mother also has a twin in these territories who is actually the queen of the area in general. I believe maybe even of the entire territories, although they seem to go on for a good way, so I don't know for sure about that. But there's this queen. I don't know how to say the last name very well, so her first name is Laura. And it's interesting because Jack's mother is known as the queen of the B movies because she was an actress in B movies over the years. So once he learns what he can from Parker or Parkus, Jack goes off to find this talisman in the territories with help from Parker or Parkus when he can. So, and when Jack appears in this territories universe, he's in this village, and he sees or hears about this. Basically, he has an who is a man who is called his uncle, even though I don't think he is, in his universe, in our universe, basically, who is called Morgan Sloat. But this man also has a twin in the other universe. What's really interesting about that is the Morgan Sloat is rather kind of short and overweight, but then in the other universe, in the territories, the other version of him is basically tall and skinny. Jack almost gets caught by Morgan's forces who are looking for him, but he doesn't know why at first. and he ends up having to go back to the United States to escape those forces. So he basically flips back and forth depending on various adventures he has. Along the basically traveling across the U.S. And so that's a big part of the book right there, is just this huge journey. And so let's see here. Basically, as he's traveling through both worlds, there's these different humanoid creatures that come after him. And let's see here. So I'm trying to remember this as I go. Jack remembers this incident with another, basically a coworker, a friend of his father and his quote unquote uncle, who died in a freak explosion, basically in a power or electrical fire explosion kind of thing. And Jack figures out that Morgan Sloat caused the explosion by just flipping between the two worlds. So Jack also causes in some cases these distortions in time and explosions in the areas. Not necessarily at the moment, but maybe later. And so he basically travels across the U.S. And so now he meets and this is basically very much a fantasy story. And so he ends up meeting, basically in these territories, there are different creatures. As I said, and one of them is, one of these species is basically like a sentient werewolf kind of character, where they are aware of their surroundings and not necessarily. They're basically like people. There's good ones and bad ones. Even though they all have to stay away from people and other animals, they all basically have to be locked up or contained when the full moon is out, which is an interesting thing, and that also comes into play throughout the story here and there. So let's see here. Okay, here's the web page here. So basically, Jack and Wolf keep traveling across the U.S. and the territories, and they keep escaping Morgan, and so it's really hard to I'm finding this a little bit difficult to summarize, because there's just so many other little events. So eventually, and through a series of unfortunate events, the character, which is named actually just Wolf, is what Jack calls him. I think it might even be his name, is not meant to be in Jack's world. So there's basically side effects. He basically smells all of the pollution, all of the industrial toxins and chemicals in the U.S. And so eventually, though, when Jack and Wolf are captured, Jack breaks free, but only after Wolf is killed by the owner of this school that they got captured by, basically like a school for homeless youths. And eventually, Jack finds Morgan's son, Richard, and they basically, oh, that's what it was, okay. While they're in this boarding school, I messed that up. Jack eventually keeps on going across the U.S. Sorry about that. This is a big story. And he finds Morgan Sloat's son, Richard, in the boarding school in Illinois. And Jack tries to convince Richard of everything that's been happening, which, of course, Richard doesn't believe it. But then Morgan's forces arrive. Basically, they're werewolves and other creatures. And basically, Jack is forced to take Richard and go into the territories. And so when they get there, and after they travel for a little while again, they find this train track and this man who was sending a shipment of weapons to Morgan's soldiers, who are basically gathering to make this final attack on Jack, which is pretty crazy if you think about it, because it's just he's just a 12-year-old boy, but because he can flip and he's just been through so much, he's not quite just a kid anymore in a lot of ways. So Richard and Jack end up boarding this train, and then basically they plan an ambush once they get to this military station. And they basically ambush this military base, and they destroy most of Morgan's forces, and they end up killing one of Morgan's assistants. I think it's his son. And so they escape to California, and Richard finally admits that it's real. So they eventually make it to California, and they find this hotel where it's basically the another version of like a twin to the hotel where Jack started off at, over on the eastern side of the U.S. And that's where they basically find, after more fighting with giant stone statues and more werewolves. It's really very much an adventure as well. Jack does find this talisman inside this hotel castle kind of building, and once he does find this talisman, Jack realizes there are multiple worlds besides the two he knows, and the talisman is the access to all of them. So but then he uses this talisman to heal Richard, who is sick. And at this point, he and Richard both have weapons. And eventually, he approaches the beach near this hotel, and Morgan Sloat arrives. And the book basically the book ends with Speedy Parker showing up, healed by Jack along the way, and Speedy Parker takes Jack and Richard back to New Hampshire in a limo, and Jack uses the talisman one last time to heal her, and also in doing that, it heal the Queen in the territories. So that's basically the a plot of that first book. It is definitely, there are some dark parts. It's definitely I mean, it's a King book, so it's definitely not for kids. Um, it does have some really interesting parts, and the whole idea. The reason I kind of wanted to cover these two books is this idea of these parallel and alternate universes. And the interesting thing about that talisman, when Jack finds it, it's kind of funny. I just realized this. It's basically this clear, almost like translucent sphere of white energy, light kind of thing, but it's physical. Jack can hold it in his hands. But it's very much almost like a giant, not a giant, but a good sized orb in a lot of ways. So, and after Jack uses it on his mom, it basically disintegrates, but it does it almost like in a natural way, where I guess the idea is it'll regenerate somewhere else. So I'm guessing you can't have the nexus to all realities just be destroyed without there being major consequences. I'm just guessing there. So so that's the first book. That's the Talisman, and I did enjoy it. Other than some of the rough parts, I did enjoy that book. Oh wow, yeah, that's interesting. That's yeah. So it is interesting how lately orbs have been coming up in the conversation a lot. So, and I had chosen these books and I had forgotten all about that. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, on electricity. You know, I'm looking at the time here. And electromagnetism. I'm looking at the time here. I feel like it may take another 20 plus minutes to describe that other book. So I think we may end the book review part of the show with that. Just wanted to, and this is kind of more for the podcast and YouTube feeds, mention that this has been an interesting, strange week in terms of energy and in terms of synchronicities. I won't go way into it because they're not just about me. They don't involve just me, and I don't want to. It's not quite as important, I don't think, to go into that in detail. But Tuesday, from Tuesday all the way through Wednesday, yesterday, there was actually rain. Excuse me. Outside almost all day those last 2 days, and even some thunder and thunderstorms here and there. Had the power flicker once on Tuesday and once yesterday. And Tuesday, I was not feeling good. So I didn't do a stream Tuesday. Yesterday, we did a stream, and it was going to be a podcast, but it was odd because both of the bots that usually work really well, both the recording bots, I should say, they both quit for some reason. And so there are all these synchronicities between myself and other friends, and it went on throughout the night. Yeah, I see you, APOC, thank you, but I think I'll just keep it kind of vague. Pretty much just, there was all this discussion about orbs and lights and energy and electricity and what all that is and how it works. And then, like I said, we had that weather before the stream, And then these two bots that, like I said, normally work fine. Now they don't run out of the same physical server from what I understand. So the idea is that they would not, one going down would not affect the other going down. It would not cause the other to go down. So it's almost like that stream last night was just meant to be for various friends and whoever was there, and there was just synchronicities and kind of things realized about previous events, and just again the whole topic of orbs and light. And last night, what we did was APOC and I chose 3 stories, each of us, and we didn't tell each other what the stories were going to be, but they all lined up really well with each other. So it was just an odd night. So just a lot of that is just to explain that that is why there hasn't been an episode available for the last 2 nights. But I was kind of just realizing it today that there was some weird energy stuff going on those last 2 days. Not necessarily bad. I don't feel like it was bad, but just maybe more intense is a better word for that. So, so yeah, that's what happened the last 2 days. And but I'm glad I was able to come back today and do this. And we will cover Black House, which is the sequel to the Talisman, next Thursday. Since we didn't get to, like I said, it would take another 20 plus minutes to cover that. So that's going a little bit long. So yeah, the plan for tomorrow is the last part in the Mountain series trilogy, where I've got a couple articles about mountains and the paranormal all around the world. And so that should be fun to cover that. And then we'll get back to the regular schedule next week, next Wednesday. Let me check on that real quick. Yeah, next Wednesday. The plan is for Derek, the Night Stalker, to be on the show with me next Wednesday night. And we're going to cover another major event in comic book history that has ties to the paranormal. And also similarly, this idea of different realities and even changing reality to such an extent that it doesn't look much like it did before. So that should be fun. And we're going to be doing that kind of a comic book event review show once a month from now on, whenever possible. So hope you all like this. Oh, and then on the first Wednesday of the month, I guess I can go through all these little announcements now. Starting next month, the first Wednesday of the month, it will be, from now on, a news show, a paranormal news show. So I'm going to find a few stories on the web and talk about them and react to them, and we'll see how that goes. So, but yeah, thank you all for being here, and looking forward to the last of the Mountain episodes tomorrow night. So take care, and we will talk to you on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Good night.